Right, so first award, Player of the Year. Pretty easy, I reckon.
Yeah, it can only be Salah, can it? Only be
Agreed,
him.
100%.
I think 29 goals, 18 assists. It's just an absolute shoe-in. Um,
Ridiculous. Yeah,
he's now in the conversation for the arguably the best Premier League player we've ever seen.
you could be
But,
massively up there. I think that over time it will just be, he's still adding to his tally. Like, who knows how high up he'll get up with goal scoring and, not just his stats, but how he performs. I know he gets the numbers, but he's just week in, week out, just usually the best player on the pitch. Every single time Liverpool play, he has a good performance 9 times out of 10, 9.5 times out of 10. He's just that good. You just never expect him to have a bad game. And consistency is what makes him.
yeah, I think he's in the top 10 for goals and assists now. I think he's third, maybe he's fourth on the all-time scorers list now. But
Yeah.
he's signed a 2-year deal. He could quite feasibly finish second on that list if he sees his
Yeah.
career out. Who knows? Who knows if he can get close to Alan Shearer's record? Um, yeah, no, absolute shoe in.
Yeah. No, 100%. So next award, young player.
Go on then. I'll let you go first on this.
I'm going to go with Murillo, Notts Forest. I think he's been
Okay.
absolutely fantastic in the back line with Notts Forest. I think Forest have just had such a good season, and him, playing there so consistently and doing so well. I think for me, he's got to get the Young Player of the Year. There's another person I've got in mind, and if yours is different, I'm wondering if you're going to say him. But yeah,
Mine
I
is
think it's a
different.
close one.
I don't think mine was actually nominated in the Premier League awards, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I've gone Miles Lewis Skelly.
Oh, have you? Oh, I thought you were going to. Oh,
Yeah,
my other one was Dean Hewson from Bournemouth as my other little shout I was
yeah,
going to put in. But yeah, Lewis Skelly is a shout. He's come on a
he's
lot.
Hoyce an honourable mention, I think. But I think first of all, Lewis Skelly wasn't nominated, which is ridiculous. With I think Gravenberch won it is older. I think Saliba was in the vote, which is like bizarre. Lewis Skelly's turned
How old's
18, and
Saliba now? Like 24, 23,
I think
24.
so. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously he's been good, but Lewis Skelly's 18. This is his first. It's a
Yeah, yeah.
breakout year for him, and the way he's okay. Arsenal didn't win anything. Fine, I completely get that, but he's come into what's been a bit of a problem position for us in the last couple of years, and he's made it his own, and he's a fan favourite already. He walks around like he owns the place. He's got that. He's got a bit of arrogance, and I remember when,
Got a confidence, isn't he?
yeah, his ability on the ball to bring it forward. I think two games really stood out for me. The one we played Man City, and he scored the goal in the 5-1 win, and he kind of gave it back to Haaland,
Haaland.
after the 2-2 draw. And I thought, wow, he's got a bit about him. A lot of he's almost a kid, isn't he? At that point, at that age,
Yeah,
he's got a little
yeah,
bit about him. And
100%.
said it was arrogance. They didn't win the league. I get it, and they're talking of perennial champions. But it's when he went to the Bernabeu and he played like it was just a kickabout in the Sunday League, in
Yeah,
no
yeah,
fear. He's coming up against Vinicius Junior, Mbappe, Bellingham, and there was nothing to say. You'd think as a Real Madrid team you'd target him
yeah,
and
yeah,
go after him because he's going to be overawed. He's going to be under so much pressure. He'll panic on the ball, and he was so calm. The way he's receiving the ball into some dangerous positions, bombing up the pitch. He got the third assist at the Emirates with the 3-0 win. I think he's just been outstanding. So for me, he's my young player because he's a
yeah.
proper
That's
young
fair
player.
enough. So next after that, we got manager of the season. For me, there's no other option really with Arne Slot. I think to come in and just put yourself right in there with Liverpool and win the league in your first season is just pretty mad, to be honest. Considering like how good Klopp was with Liverpool, but and did win the league, but ultimately usually comes second to Man City. The way Slot's come in this first season and done it is just mad, really.
Yeah, I've got Arne Slot as well. I think he's probably a bit underrated. I think people are quick to say But Man City were rubbish this year, and Arsenal didn't keep up the pressure. But actually, I think it's because Liverpool were so consistently good. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's not City's best season, it's not Arsenal's best season, but Liverpool, I think they've led since
Liverpool
November, and
kept that consistency. That's
yeah,
the thing. Someone had to keep consistent to win it, and that was Liverpool. And doing
and
it in
we
your first season is mad.
and what we've seen over the years is Ferguson leaving. Look at Man United ever since Arsene Wenger leaving. Look at us. I know we're getting there now, but really, an icon manager leaving the club. Klopp was that guy for Liverpool,
Yeah,
and it always tends to follow that the manager following that legend fails, and he's taken it by storm.
yeah,
And fair play to him.
yeah. No, he's done really, really well. What about his surprise package?
I think again as a team, there's only one real answer here for me, and that's Nottingham Forest. I think it's such a
Yeah,
shame
I've got the
they.
same. It's not
You're gonna
Forest.
say, yeah. I think it's just such a shame they run out of legs at the end, but obviously a smaller squad
Yeah, the
haven't got the
little fall off was it
experience.
was harsh. I think they deserved. They did deserve more than that. I was really rooting for them to get into the Champions League. I think that would have been so good. And seeing the club that's won it twice before as well. Pretty sure it's twice.
Yeah, yeah, 2 European
Yeah,
Cups.
it is
Yeah,
twice, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, doing it twice already. It's they almost belong there, don't they? Really, a team that's done that. Um, just having them back
Yeah,
in there, it's like one of them teams that should be there, sort of thing. So but it's still ultimately what a season when a lot of people, including myself, probably had them down for relegation. So
yeah. They were close last year, weren't
realistically,
they?
yeah,
And
they were.
when they bought like 20 players in a summer transfer window. I thought, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah,
But I think it's really clever the way they played this kind of counter-attacking style, and they built this team of Ilanga and Chris Wood and Morgan Gibbs White, and this team of players who so like Ilanga was at Man United a few years ago, didn't quite have it at that level, I guess. Although you could argue that
yeah,
point now, but they've kind of built a team of players from bigger clubs that didn't quite break into that first team and made a squad out of them. And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
brilliant. I think Nuno's a close second for manager of the year.
Yeah, 100%. No, what he's done's like been unreal, really, from where they were last year.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
on the spirit of Elanga and Man United, I will come on to my flop of the season. It's got to be Man United. I think. I know I'm Tottenham, and you could easily put us there, but in the end of the day, I think it was between whoever won the Europa League, it was going to save their season. The other was going to be the laughing stock, and I'm glad for once it wasn't us, and it was United. I think they lost the Europa League final, which was their last little get out of, a bit like for us, really. We've ended up in Champions League after a shocking Premier League season. But at the end of the day, you win a trophy and you're in Champions League. Whereas for United, they've not got a trophy, no Champions League, and have finished 16th, which is just the other thing I would say on top of that, because it was probably between us and United, is just the sheer money that United keep spending year after year. You say what you want about the owners, but they spend money every single year, and them still being down that low is just mental, really.
Yeah, it's the same for me. I think it was very nearly Tottenham, but the fact they won the trophy it can't be as much as a flop as Man United. Even if they did finish a couple of points above you in the league, neither of those teams
Nothing to
should be down.
celebrate, is it? 16.
No, this is the thing. And Tottenham have the thing is with Tottenham as well is they've there's this stereotype that they are the banter club and the team who never win anything. And whatever we say about Man United, they still win trophies. So
Yeah,
they have been far below their expectation. I think they've been lower in their from their expectation than Tottenham have in a weird way. Like
a
Tottenham should
hundred percent.
never be down there,
Because
but no one would have thought you'd at the beginning of the season you'd expect it more from Tottenham than Man United. Which does that make
yeah,
sense?
definitely. Yeah,
And I think
100%. I think we won the
they.
Europa League, so we've got that trophy weight lifted off.
Mm.
And ultimately we've come out of a Europa League trophy and Champions League, which anyone would be happy with that, to be honest. And I know our
Yeah,
season was poor, and not making excuses because it was nowhere near good enough finishing 17th, but as well we were one of probably, if not the most hit club with injuries in terms of actual crucial players. I know some people would be like, oh, this team had like couple of more injuries. For us, it was just how many first teamers. That's what I'd say to all the other fans is how many of your first team players were out for that length of time that we had. Which, again, no excuses because it was nowhere near good enough. And even when they come back, we were still shit. So, but it's one of them that, that is another factor. Whereas, United, did they have as many injuries? I don't think they did. And I just think, yeah, maybe Amarim next year gets on a little bit better in the players, but it's one of them things that United, how long have United now been since Fergie, where they've just had ups, downs, players in, players out, and they seem to be changing. It's almost like they need to stick with someone, really. I mean, which is what, potentially is an argument with Ange at the moment for us, is sticking with someone and just building. Um, because otherwise you're just going to keep going in the cycle of change your players, change your manager, and just never get anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they've it's bad decision after bad decision with Man United, and I know obviously the Glazers have run the club into the ground a little bit compared to where it was before. But Amarin's come in; he's not really got the squad, and he's one style of play. But and I know they knew that bringing him in, but at some point you've got to go right. This is not working. They've missed out on the Champions League. I think that Europa League final was more about the Champions League than it was the trophy. And now they haven't got that £100 million prize, and they need to rebuild a squad. I think they're going to have to sell Bruno Fernandes for that to happen realistically, or it's not going to improve. But the problem they're going to have is they put all their eggs in one basket with a manager who plays one very specific system. If it doesn't work with him, they'll sack him. Then they'll have a squad built for a manager that won't be there anymore again, and they have to
Yeah,
reset the cycle. I think this is a new era of Man United for us. It's not the team that we grew up with.
yeah, no, it's not looking good for them. But yeah, we move on to the next one, which is the signing of the season. And for me, obviously I mentioned Murillo being my young player of the year. I go with the bloke next to him, Milenkovic, at 12.3 million euros is an absolute steal. I think he's my signing of the season. To be honest, I think again like how well Notts Forest had done, and for that price tag, he's just done so well with them. So for me, I think based on the price tag and what he's done for the club since his join, I think Milenkovic is my signing of the season.
Yeah, same for me. I agree. I think he was 12 million, and he's been so integral to how they play. You've summed it up there. I think honourable mention to probably Dean Huijsen at Bournemouth, who's come in,
Yeah,
helped a tie, probably overachieved slightly, done really well, and then he's been snapped up by Real Madrid, and that that obviously means
yeah,
something. Um, but I think you've got to think of expectation level. Bournemouth had a higher expectation this year. Again, Nottingham Forest were
yeah.
probably people are predicting 16th, 17th in the
Or to
bids, and
go
they've
down, a
had
lot of them.
yeah, exactly. So I think Milinkovic has just epitomised everything they've done this year. So I agree.
Yeah, perfect. And last one, worst signing of the season. For me, there was a couple in there, but I'm going to go with João Felix for Chelsea. I think 52 million euros. I think he was, and he has literally done nothing for him. Like I'm pretty sure I swear I read somewhere it was like something like literally he scored like once or and assisted once or something crazy like that. The 52 million is a joke. Like yeah, I don't know. I just for me would be the worst sign of the season.
Yeah, I think he has been bad. I think he's suffered slightly as a symptom of Chelsea's scattergun approach of buying people. They've got so many attackers and wingers and number
Yeah,
10s, and yeah, I think he's a slight sufferer of that. For me, I've gone Raheem Sterling. And I know he was a loan,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but considering the career he's had and the level of player he used to be, he's not in his prime anymore, but he's not that old. He's not like he's 35 and he's about to retire.
No, no.
He went to ultimately his time was up at City. He went to Chelsea to kind of, I think, be the main man. It didn't really work out. That was where his decline started, and we took a punt on him, going right. He could be that guy to bring on against kind of those teams that were struggling to find a goal. nick a few goals here and there, and he has been dire. There's been games where we've needed a goal, and he's brought on Kieran Tierney on the left wing instead of Raheem Sterling.
Yeah, that
Tierney's
says
a
a lot,
left
doesn't
back.
it?
Yeah, exactly. And I
He's
think
not even your starting left back now, and then he's
no,
still coming on
no,
in
no.
front of Sterling on the wing. That's a joke.
And we know he's leaving the club. There's no reason really for Tierney to be coming on, and he leaves Sterling on the bench. I think that is a damning indictment of where Sterling is at the moment. I
Yeah,
think, all right,
yeah.
so for me,
I thought it was going to be
it,
all right for you, to be fair. I thought it'd actually be a
yeah,
decent
I did,
signing,
and I think
but
I'm not saying no, I'm absolutely not saying we would have won the league if he was on form, but I think it'd be if we had a reliable winger to bring on, considering we've had all the injuries, we'd be a little bit closer, and we just didn't have
yeah,
that with him. I think he's been
yeah,
absolutely shocking, and he needs to go and reset away from Chelsea, a slightly smaller club where he's got a bit more time to be the star man. I think. I don't think he's there at that top level anymore.
yeah. To be honest, my only other shout outs for that was potentially Xerxes as a bad signing, and then potentially for a better signing, Marco Asensio for Aston Villa. I think he's been quality coming in, but
Yeah, Asensio's been
yeah,
great.
yeah,
I actually
but
think as well, it doesn't quite win it for me, but Mikel Merino, I think
yeah, yeah.
he's he was brought in as a bit of
Super
a utility
striker,
player.
number 9.
Yeah, and then at the start we thought, "No, he's not living up to the expectation here, and then he got forced in, and he did a job. I think to be fair to him, he did a job at number 9, filled a gap, but he was never meant to. Not
Yeah,
quite signing of the season, but honourable mention.
yeah, definitely. Cool. Right, nice one. Well, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll post more videos soon.